Hey gang, want to talk with you a little bit today about transitioning from iron sights, gun Amish, to the 21st century where we have optics, red dots, and things like that on our firearms. Couple things that we see. A lot of folks with good intentions, they try to transition from true iron sights to red dots, and there's some trouble along the way, and the frustration certainly hits, and they just abandon the endeavor altogether. So we're going to talk a little bit today about some of those common things that people do that get frustrated and how we can fix that. So a lot of times people will put their red dot on the firearm, and they're going to use or treat their mechanics just like they would with the iron sights. But folks, it's actually not exactly the same. A lot of things certainly transition over, but now when I'm pressing out to find this red dot, whereas before I would find the iron sight simply by pressing out and finding my front sight. I'm literally looking at the front sight in my periphery, and then I marry it up with where I want to shoot, okay? That's where it comes into play, and that's where you can get really fast, because as I'm looking at my target here and I see my front sight as I go, I can just put 2 and 2 together, no problem. That's how you get plenty fast with iron sights. Well, you can't do that technique with red dots because I can't see the red dot in my periphery. I can't see the red dot until almost the last second, and that's where people get kind of hung up, because they present out just like they would their iron sights, and then now they're searching for this red dot because their presentation is lining up a iron sights, and they're either pointing too far down, too far up. They're not using that reference point, nor should you, but they're not using this or anything like that to their advantage. So the way to avoid this fishing expedition of where's my dot is now we're going to change some things about our presentation. When we press out, I'm actually going to have my muzzle, and I'm exaggerating this right now, I have my muzzle pointed upwards a bit. That way, when I press out and I lock my wrist at the last moment, my red dot drops from the top plane of the housing. So what I'm doing is every time I get at what I call a drop from the top. Okay, so that's how you're supposed to find your red dot super quick. Okay, like I said, a lot of people don't use that reference point, and then now we have all this. Another thing is there's a flaw that's actually exposed when it comes to transitioning to red dots. If your presentation to begin with was either fishing or bowling, like this or like this, that red dot's going to call you on it. Because if my presentation was more like this and have that vertical movement, well, now this is going to happen, and I'm surely not going to find my red dot. Similarly, when I come up, and we see this sometimes, come up, now I'm trying to find a dot while trying to vertically stabilize this fire. Okay? So it's actually quite interesting how the red dot exposes a flaw too, because it pushes you to have proper mechanics that I want to thrust this firearm straight out. And at the last second, I want to lock my wrists. That's a grip issue or a grip technique. And I'm going to switch righty for you wrong-handed folks. But if I'm out here and I have this, I lock out my wrist, which is what brings down the muzzle, as I talked about. I want to have a little bit of upward pointing when I go out, and then I lock the wrist. Well, locking the wrist to bring that muzzle down, and by the way, we're talking about millimeters, not anything big. Locking that wrist down indeed locks the wrist, thereby reinforcing a good grip position. With the grip, having the red dot forces you to have a proper solid grip, locked wrists, so you can actually shoot well. So it's kind of interesting transitioning from iron sights to red dots. If you're wanting to acquire that red dot fast, you need to have good mechanics, presentations and grip and things like that for that to be a reality. So those are some common mistakes when transitioning to to red dot as far as presentation, mechanics, and things like that. Let's talk about the zero. This is another thing. I'm sorry. If you can hear the frustration in my tone, it's real.
Yeah, I get a little frustrated when I'm dealing with incompetence.
But what happens is when people transition from iron sights to red dots, they'll take this red dot, okay, they'll go to the range, zero it for like 3 yards without any regard for the trajectory of the bullets, the grain of the bullet weight, like all the things that go with it. And there's so many factors. So first of all, I want to actually zero this thing. A lot of times people zero at 10. Okay, 10's respectable. Personally, I like to zero it at 15 yards, which is the same zero effectively at 25 yards. So I'm getting a 25-yard zero at 15 because the bullet flies flat on a 115 grain bullet, flies flat between 15 and 25 yards. So what I do is I zero this for 15 yards, okay? That way, at anything less than 15, I have a slight holdover. Anything greater than 25, I have a slight holdover, and I'm good to go. So that's the one thing. We zero it for the wrong distance. Folks that zero it at 5 yards, you have an aggressive zero on there. So what happens now when you're shooting targets at 10 yards, 15, even 25 yards, okay? You're gonna get a hold under where you point that red dot, and that bullet is gonna go ahead and hit way over your intended target. By way over, I mean like this much, not this much, okay? But it's gonna be significant enough where you're gonna wonder why. That's one of the things. The other things is not necessarily adjusting your red dot intensity for what you're doing. You just have one intensity. It's like, I'm gonna go about my day. Put the intensity while you were in your house and there was not that much light. You go outside on a sunny day and now you can't see your red dot, okay? So those are some things with regards to the zero and the intensity of the dot. You also don't want to have starbursts when you're using the red dot. And what I mean by that is the intensity is so bright that you see essentially rays, it's like looking at the sun kind of thing, when you're actually trying to sight in. Not that it's too crazy, but you actually want to have a good solid dot that's bright enough, but you're just shy of that starburst, that you can see a clear dot, whether you're running a 6 MOA dot, a 3 MOA dot, or something like that. Now, your eyes will dictate the MOA on the dot that you select, because on, say, for instance, the Romeo 1 Pro comes in a couple different MOAs. It comes in 6 MOA. So if your eyes are bad and you need that bigger dot, okay, fine. That just means that at 100 yards, that dot is going to fully encompass a 6-inch plate, okay? You might want to choose a 3 MOA if your eyes are good and things like that. That way, at longer distances, your red dot doesn't fully enclose the intended target. So choosing the MOA on the dot. The last thing I want to talk about is the maintenance of it. A lot of times people will throw in a battery. First of all, in most cases, not all, but most cases, the battery that comes with your red dot is not a great battery. Okay, the manufacturer put their money into the manufacturing of the red dot, not in giving you great batteries. So I find that those batteries last you a few months, and then they're gone. So fine, run it for a couple months if you want to get a free battery out of it, but know that in short order, you're going to have to replace that battery. So what I would suggest is when you get that red dot, get another battery and get a couple spares. I like to have a couple spares on hand, even though I know that a good red dot with a good battery is going to last me a while. On something like a Hollow Sun red dot, I have red dots that are constant on. Of course, they have shake awake, but constant on. They've lasted me 3+ years. Okay, good batteries last you 3+ years, but not checking your red dot for the battery and the intensity. You want to make sure that your batteries are lasting you. So when you're cleaning your guns, when you're checking as you go about your day, check the red dot, check the batteries, things like that. And I like to have a spare battery on hand and the ability to change it. okay? It's great to have a spare battery on hand, but make sure you have either a particular screwdriver or something so that way you can actually get the battery changed out on that red dot, because that battery or spare battery is worthless to you unless you can change it. So the other thing about it is the lens, okay? People do not take care of their lenses. Folks, you got some expensive lenses on these red dots, whether it be Romeo 1 Pro or a Trigicon Type 2. You got some, they're good lenses, they're durable lenses, but you got to take care of them. So making sure that you keep the lenses clean and free of things like lint and things like that. So people don't check their lenses on their EDCs particularly, and you have that in and out of the various clothes that you have, and in a week or two you've got a lint, dust, hair, whatever cloud in there, and you can't even see past the window. So those are some things that we see transitioning from iron sights to red dots. There's everything from maintenance to batteries to zeroing and where to mount it and things like that. So you might be thinking, oh my gosh, with iron sights, it's just, hey, I don't have to do anything. Yeah, for the most part, you're right. So you're kind of deterred from going to the red dot because it does have increased maintenance and things like that. But when used correctly, that red dot is a force multiplier. One of the main reasons, and I'll close with this, but one of the main reasons of having a red dot is making good decisions, having that positive identification when in use. I can take this red dot, I can train in on my target, and I can see my target just as well as if I were looking at it without training a firearm on it. When I'm sucked through the aperture of a rear sight and front sight post, I lose, especially if I'm closing one eye, I lose perspective of my target, meaning I might see only half of my target. So if I point my firearm and that bad guy drops the weapon, I may miss it, okay? Or I may miss positive identification of who that bad guy is. So red dot, while increased maintenance, is indeed a force multiplier. You can acquire your target faster, you can keep positive identification, works day and night. So folks, if you're thinking about transitioning to red dot, we're certainly proponents of it, but understand the details of what you're getting into. If you think all gun laws are an infringement and you live behind the enemy lines in the People's Republic of California, then check out our Unconvicted Felons t-shirt. We came out with this t-shirt design for you where most of us are fed up with the situation here in California. So check it out. Check out our website. Awesome t-shirt coming at you, and our new line of 2 arms where it stands for 2A Rights Matter. So check out our new t-shirt and help us feed our dog.